Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be doing some bullet journal ideas for March, and if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. Okay, so in the pinned comment as well as in the description box, I will timestamp the different sections of this video. For my bullet journal idea video series, I will always be working in tandem with both of these. And so I do have this one out, but we're going to be working in this one here. Now I do have this segmented. This is the Buke. B-U-K-E. I don't know if you can see that, a bullet journal that I picked up from Amazon. I will link that below, as well as this one. Both of these are really affordable. I think this was like $8 and this was like $15 or $16. In the description box under my Amazon affiliate links, I will have them by the name, but I'll also say the black one or the brown one because of the various journals. Those are the only black and brown ones that I have. And so I do have this cute clip. I'm probably going to take it off because it might get annoying, but you know, at least it's in the beginning part of the video. In fact, yeah, I'll take it off. Now, sometimes I think people can get a little intimidated by coming up with monthly themes. For me, that's part of the fun. So I'm never intimidated by that. And for March, what I decided to do was pick the color blue. And so that's going to be the theme. And because I do two different bullet journal ideas in this video, you're going to see how the color blue can really range the gamut of things. I have tested out some things, and that's why you see washi down here. And so we'll be doing this in just a minute. But the reason I came up with the color blue for March is March is my sister's birth month. And so this coming March, she would have been 39 years old, and blue was her favorite color. What we're going to be doing for this particular spread involves some watercolor, sort of. And so one, I took the clip off, but also I wanted to map out some ideas. Now I've tried some of this just to test it out, but I actually haven't done this in this way. And at the end of the video, I'll show you what I mean by some of that, because that sounds really confusing. But yeah, so as we do this together, this is the very first time I'm doing it in this particular way. These are the three colors that I'm going to be choosing. For this, I will be leaning heavily into that Crayola SuperTips box that I purchased, which is this right here. And I just went through, there's a whole variety of blues. I did some test swatching. I'll show you that at the end of the video. And these are the three that I came up for this idea layout. And then what I have here is a Ziploc bag. Now I have turned it inside out, and my reasoning for that is just in case there is some residual color when I'm done with this, I will turn it right side in, and then I'll store this baggie with my Crayola SuperTips. Now this happens to be a sandwich bag, but in a super size. I guess it's bigger than a normal sandwich bag. And that works, one, because I think the sandwich bag might have been too small, but also it was the first one on the shelf, and so that's why I grabbed this. So I'll put that to the side for now. And then, I'm sorry if there's a glare, I won't know until editing. And what I'll do is I'm going to arrange these in the order of darkness. And we're going to start at the top here, and we're just going to color some of this in. Now there's already texture on the bag because I have been using this, and that's okay. I'm not looking for perfection. Now I do think a Ziploc bag would work better than like a piece of saran wrap or plastic wrap, because this one has a little bit of sturdiness to it that the saran bag or the saran might not have. That's inherently floppy. And so I'm just doing some layers. It doesn't really look like much right now. And I'm trying to take into account the size of that. So that's why I think this works. And then very carefully, I'm going to turn this around I'm not going to spray any water on it, and mostly because I don't have a sprayer. And we're just going to put this down on the page. And so we'll just put it down like that. Kind of smush it in. And then lift it up. And since there is some color still on here, I'm going to go into this page and kind of place that haphazardly. Because I want color on this page, but I don't want as much as on this page. Okay, now I want to have actually more color up there. And so I'm going to come in with the dark color. And go back. And I'm not trying to get anything that looks like a wash, nor am I trying to get this completely filled in. I actually like how that looks. And then down here, I want more color there. I think I need a little bit more up here, a little bit down here. Let's put some of this residual on this side. And so we'll come back in with our dark color. Just trying to play up where, oh no, it's flipped. No, I think it'll be fine. And then put this here. So we'll put that there, just being mindful of the bag. And then we'll put this down here. And then we can be more centered with this. Again, not trying to get rid of all of the white, but definitely trying to put some color down. And I think that is good. Now the color on the page will dry fairly quickly. The color on the washi won't actually dry at all. And so I'll need to just be careful. I did get some color down here and that's fine. And you'll see in a minute. What I'm gonna do is, because this side, it's still a little wet, but it's not as damp as this one, I'm going to pull up the washi tape. And I'm gonna move it. So I'm pulling in an upward motion. I don't know that it matters, but I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to avoid ripping the page. Now because I mapped this out last night, it did have a chance to stick. Ugh. So if you're going to be doing this, I wouldn't let it sit that long, because I mean, washi tape is supposed to peel off, but I mean, it is still tape. So luckily, I'm not going to be doing anything in that, and it doesn't really affect that there. I'm going to peel off the rest of this tape, and then once I'm done with that, I'll bring you guys back. All right, fun fact, pulling down versus pulling up actually makes a difference. So once I started pulling down or from side to side, it has not ripped up any of the paper. And put that down in the trash. Again, there is color on this washi. It's coated, and so I've got color on my fingers. I will need to clean that in just a second. I'm gonna rip away this final one here. I'm gonna use a couple of alcohol wipes or lens cleaning wipes. That's what I have next to me. I really should actually get some baby wipes in here. I think they clean better, but this is what I have. And I'm just more worried that I'm gonna smudge on other pages, and I really want to avoid that. Now that doesn't look like much right now, although it is definitely very decorative. Now you might be wondering what this is. Well, I thought this might be interesting if it looked like the night sky to have a telescope. Now I just drew this just to figure out how it would look on the page, and then that's why I left that little gap. And so, as you can see, there's nothing mapped out. I'm not putting any other color on the page, and so I can use this. I think the Sarasa pens are waterproof, but if I were going to put more ink on top, I would definitely use something like this instead, but I think this one will be fine. Plus, it'll give me a nice inky line. And we're just going to come here and follow the shape of it and do a rectangle like that. And then we'll come down here so that we know where to draw to. And I'm sorry for the shadowing. And then come a little way in and just meet up to that point, and then do the same here. Okay, and then we'll make a line like that. Now I could use a ruler, but honestly, I don't want to. And then a half circle there with a little dot there. And I just found this doodle online, and so I'm just replicating what it is that I found. And try to make this kind of straight. And that line is longer than the other two lines. And so you have, well, let's do this. Do that and that, just using the dots or at least the lines on the page. And then come out, again, trying to be reasonably straight. And again, and can put little feet on there. I actually like how that looks. Now to square this off, I'm going to be using this here. This is a protractor, I believe. Yeah, because the one with the pencil is the compass. And I'm just going to be using my black pen and squaring it off. And there is a fair amount of white space there. I think there might still be some color on this bag, so let's see if we can be a little strategic. I don't care if it goes on there, I wanted to be able to clearly see that. And then we can put some here too. Oh, I think that looks better. And then I'll do the top line. And the reason why this booklet is here is because it gives me a flat surface, but I'm going to move this for a minute because I'm working on this side. And I'm going to just put this at the top there and draw my straight line. Okay, so there's that. While the little bit of ink I put on is drying, I'm going to square this off as well. Because that will give me a framework of where the quote's going to go. All right, so for here, I'm actually going to outline this, not with a ruler, but just freehanding it, because I want that look. So let's make that mistake look intentional by darkening up some of this. And then I'm going to take my Tombow, and I think I'll use that end. And then I'll do another pass through, just thickening up one side of it. March 2021. And then here, I'll do mostly block lettering. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do over here is add in some diamonds. Right there. Maybe some dots right there. Maybe do one of those planet things up here. Again, it's kind of galaxy, kind of not. And it's just definitely to fill in some spaces. And I think that looks pretty good. Now there's definitely smudging down here, but I mean, for the way that we're doing this, I think unless you covered the entire page, that was going to happen. But I like it. I think it looks good. The quote I chose was, "A life that touches others, go on forever." I think that might be a little confusing on how that's read, but I know how it's read, so that's what's important. And so how I set the rest of the month up is utilizing some of that technique where I rubbed color on the Ziploc bag. And so I set up the monthly calendar. I've got a notes page here. I've got a March playlist here, as well as highlight of the week. And I thought this might be a good place to put either a word or a really short sentence of what was the best part of the week, sort of like a gratitude log, but not so intense that you've got to do it every day. Now this is 2 lines worth of spaces. If I were to use this and I were to use my High-Tech C pen, I could actually get a couple of sentences there. If you write big, then you may just want to put that as just a few words or just as one word. And then I've got some of the smudging there, and there. And because the smudging is so random, I did make a point of boxing out things just because I think it gives some dynamic to the page, plus it's part of the decoration. For the tracker page for this particular layout, I thought, well, let's approach this as if this were for content creation. And so this is a page for a brain dump or pesky thoughts that clutter my brain. And then on here, I put social media type things. And so I would use this to map out either Instagram posts that I want to do or posts that I have done. Again, you could choose either. Same with Facebook. And then YouTube videos, this could be either what was done or what is anticipated to be done. And then this FESS method here, F-E-S-S, is something that I've gotten from Andy, and that's film, edit, schedule, and share. And that way you could have for each line or video here, then you could just check it off as those things are done. I don't do a planner or a journal for my content creation. I just do whatever. But this is something that I have used in the past. And then for a weekly setup, it looks pretty random, and it is, but this is a vertical layout. I just didn't do the lines all the way down, and I think that looks really dynamic. For my purposes, I could absolutely use this because I could either journal going down that way, or I could use it as a list. But I thought it looked good. And the way that I've segmented this up, this would be to track or do things for me personally, and then this would be a column for other things. So this could be personal and work, personal and content creation, whatever. But I liked having the segment between the two sections just so that it doesn't look like a long to-do list. I did use that smooshing method on here, and then because I didn't really want to put anything else, I just did some doodles again that I found online. And I did use this Wink of Stella brush. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there are elements on here that are a bit glittery. And once that cover page dries, I'm actually going to put some on there just to add a little bit of sparkle. And it dries really quickly, so I was really pleased with that. And so that is idea number 1. And so for idea number 2, we're actually going to go in quite a different direction, and I think it's actually a lot easier. And so let me move some of these to the side. Now we're no longer going to use these 3 blue colors, and instead we'll be using these 3. And so just like before, I want to do the March cover page, and then this will be a quote page. So I'm going to do 2 lines. I'm not going to use a ruler. And I'm going to make it fairly thick. And then I'm going to come with my medium shade. As you can see, there's 3 different shades of blue, one darker, a medium, and a light. And I'll just do that there. I'll let that dry for a second, come back in and do some straight lines. And because I want those blue lines to be a bit organic, is that the word I'm going to be using? I don't want them to be perfect for a reason, and you'll see that in a second. That's why I want the rest of it to look as straight as possible, because I could do this freehand, but again, we're using the lines as part of the decorative element. Okay, and now that these are dry or drier, I'm going to trace these, not being particularly caring if I'm precise or not, and turning this into faux washi tape. And the inspiration definitely is coming from this grid one here, and so I'm going to just do some freehand lines. Across. And you definitely want to put your color down, and then you don't have to worry about smearing your ink. I am not looking for precision here. I just want to give that sense of a grid washi tape. And then in here, I think we'll use this. And do like that. Once it's dry a little bit, I think I'll do some highlighting with this one. But what's going to add to this is what I'm going to be doing next. And I think I'll do the quote page offline or off camera, because once I do this page, you'll know exactly how I'm doing the process, and it'll make this a little bit faster for you guys. But I'm going to freehand drawing some lines. And I'm not looking to be precise. I want to be as neat as I can while still doing it freehand. Now, I want to make a point of trying to stop where the dots are. I already went outside of the line there, and so I'm just gonna continue that just because once it's done, you'll see having that as precise as you can be while still doing it freehand just makes the final product look a little neater. Now because this is a dot grid, I'm just going every other row. And then I'll do the same here. Now that in itself looks nice, but I'm actually going to come across and do sort of a grid line. Again, just following every other space. Now the dots in this are quite light, and so if you were going to do this in either, if you pick this one up or in your own, you just may want to be a little aware of how light your dots are, because if you're using a darker color, because you can use any color, then you may not be able to see your dots. And I think that looks really good. Now there's a spot right here, because there's a line here that comes here. Maybe we'll just thicken this one up. Oh, I know what it is. It's the cross ones. Like, that seems like a lot of white space. Okay, that definitely makes that better. Now, you can tell that I went wonky here. My lines are not perfectly straight, and that's fine for me. But, and this isn't something that I originally thought of, but you'll see that it does come into play in some of it, is I'm going to treat this as if it were a blanket on the ground. And so we're going to do a little ant like that. It kind of hides that extreme wonkiness right there. And then we'll just do like that. Again, I'll do this side off camera, although I did want to show you guys. We're just going to come in and add some of that, because we can. There's no actual reason for it. And I'll be back in just a second. All right, so the quote for this layout is "Find joy in the ordinary," and I just used my SuperTips to do that. And you'll notice for this washi, faux washi, I did not put the lines in, and I think that makes an interesting contrast, and I've actually done that in some of that back there. And for this one, I'm not going to put an ant. In the original conception of this, I didn't have this, but as you'll see in something I'll show you in just a second, there was so much white space, or there was so much dead space, that I'm like, oh, I need to put something. And so for this monthly layout, I'm treating this as if it were a budget planner. And so I've got some savings trackers there, a list for a March playlist. I actually like that idea. I meant to put in some music, and then I forgot. And you'll notice that the bigger your boxes, or the more boxes you have, the less of that you see. Now there is still some of it on the page, but it definitely focuses more on the monthly calendar and then all of these boxes here. Again, tried this more in a bubble way. And because this came out so big, I just stacked up 2021 on the side there. And then for this next section, I meant to do it for the trackers, but I forgot. And so I went right into the weekly, and there's a few mistakes here. One, imagine it without the ants on it, and then you can see there's actually a lot of dead space, even though it is decorated. And so that's why I put the ants on here. It's a little funny, it's a little gross, but I kind of like it. And then I put the space between these boxes too big, and I did use a stencil that I had picked up from Christie's shop. It's this box right here. So I should have done a little formatting, but you guys know I don't do that. And so I made the box for Saturday and Sunday a little bigger. But for whatever reason, I put Thursday here and Friday here when I was writing it out, but I'm just going to leave it. Now, you might be thinking, because I'm not going to be using this, it's okay to make mistakes. To be honest, if I were using this, I would have left it anyway. I am wholeheartedly in the belief that this really should be fun in the process. It should help with your creative juices, your creative flow, and it shouldn't give you any more stress than planning or journaling already inherently can do. So if you've been here, you know I make mistakes all the time, and I sort of lean into it. And then when I realized, oh no, this was supposed to be my trackers, then I just put it on the next page. And if you are doing a bullet journal, that is one of the genius moves about it, because if for any reason you're like, oh, that's not what I meant to do, you can insert it into the next page, and then I would actually resume week 2, 3, 4, whatever on the following pages. Now, if you do have an index, you can write down where these things are, but again, as I've mentioned, I like flipping through these things, and so I wouldn't do that inherently. For this first one, I like the concept of it, and I could do some drawing in here, but I actually just really like the look of that. I like that it's not fully watercolored. Had I done some misting, this would have looked different, but I don't have a mister. Now, as we're talking about that, this was my test page, and I'm glad I did a test page. And so I looked at the colors. Originally, I was just going to color it in by swatches. This was the method that you and I did together. And then this here, I actually did spray. Now, this is antibacterial spray. There's alcohol in it, and so it comes beautifully on the page. I love the look of that. But then it bleeds through like crazy. And this is 160 GSM paper, so I wouldn't recommend using alcohol. I mean, it makes sense. I think these aren't made for alcohol markers, so it certainly would not be useful if you use alcohol with your markers. Now, this was just some water I had poured out of my water bottle onto it. And for the most part, it was okay. But in the places that were really juicy, it also bled through there. So I may need to just get a sprayer so I can mist some actual water on here, and then you definitely get a watercolor effect, because I did use these markers here. This is not watercolor, but yeah, that that was quite a mess, but I'm glad I didn't test that with you guys here on camera. I'm glad I did have a little bit of forethought for that. Now, the reason why I do this in tandem is this is where I do my thoughts. It's where I write some quotes. I don't rely on the test swatches in here because the paper is different color, and so it'll come out, or it can potentially come out inherently different. And as you can see in my test, I did not have the ants. And in the test here, I was just going to color it in. I wasn't going to do the whole plastic bag method, but I'm glad we did that together. I like the look of that. But as you can see, it does give you, if you're using a color as a theme, a really interesting jumping off point, because you could actually do this with purples and oranges for like a sunset or sunrise. You could do lighter blues. I think these 3 blues would look really interesting and would make this look inherently different. And then the things that I would use would actually be different. If I were using this color scheme, I might put like a tree or some flowers because it'd be during the daytime. This makes more sense at night. Looking at the stars and the planets makes more sense at night. And I love the little touches so that it ties it together. And then giving it a theme within the theme by way of this is for content creation. It just helps, at least for me, since it is just a book of ideas, to sort of hone me into what it is that I'd like to look at for that particular spread. But then this one could not be more different, and yet I think it's really straightforward, if not a little time consuming. And this one you could also switch up. So had I used those 3 other colors, this would give you a completely different vibe. You use pinks, you use purples, and I actually might do that. So in future monthly spreads, I might see, all right, so if I do this smushing method and I do this method, can we make it look a little different? Or if you're looking at theming out your bullet journal and you don't really want to have to think about it, if you come upon a layout or a design that you really enjoy, then there's no reason why you couldn't do this every single month, but then just changing up the colors, especially if you have a bunch of mild liners or Tombos like me, or if you have that 100 box of Crayolas. I mean, every month would look different, but you would still have a coherent and a consistent bullet journal at the end of the year because all of the themes potentially could be the same. I'd love to know what you guys think of this and of the 2 spreads, which one you prefer. Again, I like the little ant there. This one here, when it's just 1 or 2 on the page, I think is really cute. This gets a little gross for me, and I think it's because of the legs and because of the colors. I didn't want to put a bee, although I guess a bee would have worked as well. And then this one, I didn't put anything down. But I love the look of the 2. I think because I like that blue color so much, I think I might like this one. But this one does look a little different than I've seen other people do here on YouTube by way of like a starry night or a galaxy thing. It definitely looks less professional. Let's just put it that way. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me for now. And as always, aloha.